Hey, yes, I'm finally reviewing the KME Precision Knife Sharpening System. This is it on my table here. This is the basic unit. This is the KME in a nutshell. This little contraption here. It's got a wooden handle. It's got a dial that you turn here to increase tension on how hard the jaws will stay closed and how hard they are to pivot around. And so that's this sort of device here. This one controlling the jaws, this one controlling the pivot. And then you've got this, the angle guide at the top, which you can wind and move up and down, changing the distance that the knife kind of guide, or the stone guide, covers across the blade. So basically this angle here. So it works by clamping a knife into these jaws. So here is a Spyderco Bill Moran that I've just sharpened, and I'll be putting the sharpening process of this knife up on the screen as we go. So you set the knife in the jaws like so, and you try and get it as straight as you can. So just so the knife, you're imagining, you're doing a bit of geometry in your head, and you're thinking, what's the most, what's going to be the most consistent as you wind your sharpening stone across the whole blade. So that's a good way to look at it. Do a bit of geometry in your brain and figure that out. So then you clamp it in, you tighten it in with this sort of plastic nut here. And then you are really set to go. I would make sure it's nice and firm, because there is a little bit of force applied to the knife blade, not a huge amount, but enough that over the few hundred strokes you're probably going to do, you may budge the knife if it's not in tight enough. So there's that. Now looking at mine here, you've got a stand as well, and this is an aftermarket kind of piece. It's really recommended though, because you could hold like this and power away, just in hand, kind of mobile, but this really makes it feel like a more complete desk-based kit, and it does give it that extra bit of stability that just makes it easier to use for a good long time. So I'd really recommend this stand. It just comes with this piece of metal here that just places into the bottom of the KME. There's no real fixing or anything. It's got a plastic sort of sleeve into there, just sits into there, and yeah, just screws in, and it holds it, as stable as you'd really need. This isn't the most stable of the fixed angle sharpening systems. It looks like the TS Prof, that big Russian one. That is like a behemoth that takes up a lot more space on your desk, but is really heavy and sort of ultra tough. This one is just kind of enough to be able to, you'll still be kind of rocking just a tiny bit as you go, but it's definitely not enough to change the angle or do anything of detriment to the sharpening process. So on this bar, which is also disassemblable, you've got a stone holder. So you see here, this has a winder on the end and these little teeth here. You place your stone. So here is a Beast 50 grit stone. You place that into that holder there, and then you wind it in, and that is not going anywhere. It's nice and flat, it's very solid. And so that is how you sharpen your knives. You fix your stones into this stone holder, holds them nice and flat, and all the stones are obviously the same depth and all that sort of stuff to make it a precision system, as the name entails. So that is how you get going, and then you simply thread your guide arm into the back of the stone holder, and that goes through this little eyelet here. Now, this eyelet sits next to some numbers on here. Now, it's interesting because these numbers, I guess they're kind of supposed to mean the angle, but there are so many factors that would make the angle not what that says, and that is the main one being how far away the blade is from this part here. So if I pulled this Bill Moran out a little bit more, then this would be a different angle against the edge, wouldn't it? So there's all sorts of things, the thickness of the knife and everything, that can really change what this actually means. So I would recommend getting an app on your phone or something, or an angle cube that is going to give you a rough idea. So I just have an angle app on my phone called, creatively enough, Angle, and that does an okay job. Look, I know it's not an atomic clock or anything, but it does a decent enough repeatable job of showing me what angle it seems to be. Just remembering to factor in your phone's buttons and just keep the whole thing flat against it. So I redid this one to 16 degrees just today using that, and it seems fine, it seems accurate too. So I would recommend doing that and not going completely off the guide holes here. Another thing is, I've turned this upside down, so usually this sort of pivoting ball is above this part here, but I turned it down or upside down so I can get a lower angle against here without this, kind of part here getting in the way. So that's just because I like my angles quite low. If you're sharpening your survival knives or you're sharpening really short knives and you just want like a 25 degree per side angle, then by all means keep it how it was. And even as it was, you can still get, to about 17 degrees or something. But I like to go to about 15 if I can, especially on an EDC knife. So that's kind of how it works. You fix your angle in. Once everything is tightened in, then you're absolutely fine to go. Cool thing about the KME is that it has a pivot here, which sometimes you need to like lean it back a little bit and pivot. That's the stiffness of that is controlled by this knob here. It's always turnable by hand, but it's just so if you're using a big heavy knife, the weight of the handle, so say if this is on really, really light, the weight of it can just tip it over. So it has a loose amount of resistance all the time, but say if I was using my Phobos Legion knife, you'd be doing that. So you just tighten this up, a few turns, spring put some tension on it, just a little bit clickier and a little bit firmer. So that's what that's for as well. So yeah, then you move on to sharpening, and you've got a whole bunch of stones that it comes with. This is the deluxe kit. It comes with 5 stones. The Beast is the 50 grit stone, and that is for really kind of reprofiling those higher end steels. So you're looking at a lot of these stones. The Beast is visibly really rough. And that is for definitely, S110Vs, Maximets, higher end stuff like that. Moving on, you can probably just start most of your knives on 140, which is, a perfectly fine grit for reprofiling and starting to sharpen. And then 300 grit is often what I start my non-powder steels on. So VG10 I started on 300 grit, absolutely no worries at all. Took the edge from 18 degrees to 16 degrees per side quite happily. Could have done it quicker with the 140, but as I'll speak about later, there are some hazards with the really rough stones that I'll go on to. And then you move up through your system, so 300, 600, 1500, and that'll get you by the 1500, providing you're spending a good 5 minutes per side, per blade, say just on your more basic steel, you're going to get what is easily like an excellent factory quality edge. So an edge akin to what a cold steel knife will come with, or a good Spyderco edge will be, or something like that. So really, really nice, getting towards being a pretty polished, good finished edge. These go into the stratosphere, of course, when you start to use these guys here. So these are the lapping films, and these are, it just comes in a big old box. They come with some oil as well, and these films show you what they are on the front, and then they also come with a card, which I can't find at the moment, of what they actually mean in terms of stone grits as well. So these go up to about 160,000 grit. So the 0.10 is 160,000 grit. As if it was a stone, that's what the grit of the stone would be. So they go there. There's 5 stickers per glass slide. They're all on these glass slides. And as the stickers wear out, you'll just notice the color goes, and then it's time to change it over. So I have found myself just using 3 out of the 6, usually finishing on either the 0.5 or the 0.1. So I'll use either the 0.5 or the 0.1, and then the middle one will be either the 1 or the 3, and then the starting one will be either the 9 or the 6. So that's what I've been doing just to save films, and it's been doing absolutely fine. It's when you're doing this, the downward strokes only, you'll start to see that really nice glint of the sharpening rod reflecting in your blade edge, and then you know you're on your way to a mirror. Nothing quite as special to a knife, guys. When you get your first mirror edge, it's quite nice, and it's a thing to behold, and it does feel extra sharp, and it feels very slicey, and it's really, really cool. So, mirror edges, if that is what you're after, go for this. You can probably achieve one the same using the 1500 and then moving on to a strop and stropping for a good long time with a good fine compound. But this does it quite brainlessly, which is good. This system does reward patience. Just going those few extras with each stone, I always say when I feel like I'm ready to stop, I go for another couple of minutes per side. That's kind of how I do it myself, and that's why I get, I think, pretty decent results. Making sure that you color your edges in with Sharpie when you start to make sure you're going all the way to that edge is important as well, because sometimes reprofiling can take a little bit longer than you think as well. So it's just another tip there. Pack a Sharpie in with your KME kit, absolutely. In terms of problems that can happen with this, there's a couple. The ultra coarse stones can sometimes, as this gets used, you're using it on obviously a winding kind of motion or a repetitive cycling motion, this can come a little bit loose. And you sometimes don't realize it, and you got a little bit of wobble here. Sometimes this a bit of wobble makes the stone skim a little bit higher than it was before. Putting some KME scratches on the surface of your blade, just above the edge. Lots of my blades have this. I don't really care too much because I am, not a reseller really. I'm just a user. I don't really care if my knives look particularly beaten up. It doesn't fuss me. But if you're sharpening knives for other people, take your time and make sure this stays. Or even, don't even worry about ever taking it apart, and maybe Loctite it in so you never have to worry about that happening. Because I always take mine apart and put it back together. It's just something that I deal with. That's that. So that's one thing that can happen. Another thing is, for kitchen knives and really large knives, you'll probably have to move it in these jaws. For a really big knife, you're going to struggle to get even coverage with this. This is going to be, doing this all over, you're going to probably find yourself having a shallower edge at your tip, and again at the start of the knife, and then premium turf will be in this middle 4 inches or something. So that's just something to be aware of. I would just generally use a different system for my larger knives. I really do put this as a pocket knife guy's knife sharpener, or a guy with knives, this length, maybe up to like 5 inches, you'd have absolutely no problems. Above that, you're gonna have to start maybe readjusting, sliding it along, and it's clamped just a little bit. So just a bit of advice there. But yeah, in terms of like getting a result, it's pretty brainless. Like if you never got taught, or if your uncle or grandpa or whatever never taught you how to stone sharpen, which seems to be a very commonly recited anecdote, it's that joke, it's like the CrossFit joke. How do you know if someone goes to CrossFit? Don't worry, they'll tell you. How do you know if someone can stone sharpen? Don't worry, they'll tell you. It's a bit like that. But if you never learn how to stone sharpen, then this is a really good way of getting very comparable results using just a repetitive method. Stone sharpening, I'm sure, can still get better edges. You see Michael Christie, Big Brown Bear, get better edges than me all the time, but these certainly are great edges, and they slice and cut really, really well, so there's that too. There's a slight bit of jiggle in it, so if you're after like a ultra robust, like one that feels like it's part of a boat, then yeah, maybe the TS Prof, the other ones. The thing is, I don't know about any of the other fixed angled systems apart from the Lansky. This is kind of like a actually they're all kind of like a super version of the Lansky. I can't really comment, so don't bother asking me which one I think is better. I just haven't had any experience with any apart from this. So all this is really is a long-term use review, having sharpened, I guess, about, I'd say 50 or 60 knives to full, from full like blunt or a full reprofile to mirror polish. So that's my experience with this so far. So I feel like I'm able to talk about it and how I felt about it and kind of how it works and what it's good and not so good for. So yeah, if you're after something for a kitchen knife, I would say get either a heftier one of these, or like my Tormek is great for kitchen knives, or a Work Sharp is great for kitchen knives, that sort of stuff. But yeah, this is really like a pocket knife nerd's sharpening system for sure, and it's great for that. So full disclosure, this was sent to me by Nick Shabazz. We've got a bit of a bromance going on, we're friends. He doesn't have any formal relationship with KME or anything. I think he's got a friendly relationship, but I don't have any relationship with KME at all. I've got no reason to talk this up if I didn't like it. I didn't even pay for it. I don't even have that buyer's commitment sort of thing going on. So when I say this is a really good system for pretty much anyone, I really do mean it. It's excellent. It's got a slight learning curve, but all I would say then is just slow down a bit. If you feel like you're done, just do a little bit more, and then you actually will be done. In terms of taking tips off, again, just slow down. Don't take the stone all the way off or don't let the stone run all the way off the edge. Just stop so the stone is kind of in the middle where the tip is, and just rub up and down that way. That's kind of how I do my tips, and even then, I'm not perfect. Making sure that the knife is dead even with this is probably the most important part of the process. That'll get a nice even edge across it. And apart from that, as long as the knife isn't too big, I don't think you'll have any worries at all, really. So yeah, there you go. It all comes in a pretty nice carrying case, well at least this one did here. Which do I think you should get? Look, if you don't care about polished edges, get a basic kit, and I think as long as you get a stand as an extra, it's going to do all the work for you. But once you want those mirror polishes, if you start being a bit more of a fussy knife nerd like I am, then yeah, the stones, or the glass slides with the lapping films are great too. So there we are. Look, if you want to see more evidence of this thing, just check all of my knife lab videos. Pretty much all my sharpening tests for the last probably 9 months have been KME tests to different angles. It really does let you experiment with your edges and get the best out of different steels. It'll sharpen crazy hard steels, it'll sharpen crazy soft steels. The diamond plates are great for that. They seem to have a decent life to them. My 600 grit and my 1500 grit starting to show some shiny spots in them, but certainly not underperforming or anything just yet. I would say maybe in another 6 months time I might be after some new ones, but then it's just about how much pressure you put on them too. I think when you're new at this, you probably do put a bit of downward pressure because you want to make sure you're doing it right. As you go on, you sort of eventually realize, oh, it is just the weight of this really does kind of do the job. So it's just a part of the learning process. But anyway, after a lot of use, I can really recommend the KME. I do think it's great. It's expensive, but it's really only the same price as like an expensive pocket knife, and it'll help you keep all your other pocket knives fighting fit. And I'm the same. I struggle to buy like the knife related product. I always just want to buy the new knife. But that's just me, and if you get over that, then I think you'll have a really good time with it. Thank you so much to Nick. This really did boost my channel up. Did lots of the extra edges and stuff that really did sort of satisfy the viewers as well. So if you're not subscribed to Nick, which I don't see how you could know about my channel without knowing about his, I'd give him a subscribe and just say thanks for sending Pete that KME. It made his channel better. So there we go. Alright guys, that's all. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.